All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining. Giving a moment to let everybody jump in the room here. Today, I'm coming to you live from Hendy Woods State Park. Beautiful place where we get to explore the coast redwood forest. And I'll turn the camera on and introduce myself in a moment. Today, we're going to be talking about climate change. We're going to be talking about the cause and effects of climate change and some of the challenges that these coast redwoods face, including the long periods of drought and the increased intensity of wildfires. But we're also going to be learning about how all these trees do to help us combat the effects of climate change. So I hope everybody's having a good day today. Everybody can hear me and see me, or hear me all right? Yeah? Let's see, anybody out there? All right. I'm just going to trust that you can hear me because the sound is coming all right through on my end. And I'm going to turn the camera around and introduce myself. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Stephen Yahelka with California State Parks. Again, I'm coming to you live from Hendy Woods State Park, which is a beautiful place where we get to explore these amazing trees, the coast redwoods. We get to talk all about how well adapted these trees are and, how amazing these trees, as natural wonders of our world. These trees, do so much for us and have a long history with us as, early Californians. Now, the coast redwoods are designated as a state symbol for California. They are our state tree, and well, it's because of the long line of history that we've had with these trees as people. Even before settlement in California, the Native Californians, the Pomo Native people, had actually a very strong relationship with the land around here. This is the ancestral land of the Northern Pomo people. But as we're going to learn today, the impacts of our use of the land is something that we need to be thinking about. These amazing trees were utilized as a lumber source throughout the colonization of California. And well, the impact of that has trickled down to where we stand now. We're going to be talking about climate change, the cause and effects of climate change. And we're going to be learning all about, what these trees have to do, all the challenges that these trees have to overcome over the next few years. And a very important topic that we're going to be learning about. But, these amazing trees, these are natural wonders of the world. If you were to measure this tree from one end all the way to the other, I would find out that this tree that I'm standing in front of is 18 foot in diameter. But what really makes these coast redwood trees very significant and state symbols of California is their sheer height. These are the tallest living organisms in the world. Let's just take a look up. Now, as we start to pan up the trunk of the tree, start to see all that furrowed bark stretching all the way up. These trees grow to heights of over 350 feet tall. And we start to see our very first branches way up there. That's about 100 feet off the ground. And the top of the tree just continues up into the canopy where we cannot even see the crown of the tree because of the thick branches and the thick foliage. Now, these trees, in order to grow to be such heights, to be over 350 feet tall in many cases, well, they have to have a bunch of adaptations to live a long life. These trees, they can survive sometimes as over 2,000 years. And it's truly amazing that these trees are able to do so. Well, let's just talk a little bit about where we are in the world before we jump into the important topics of today. Now, we are in California, of course, being we are in California State Parks, and we are, right smack dab in the middle of the Redwood Range. Now, the coast redwoods stretch all the way from Crescent City at the Oregon border down south past Eureka, past Mendocino, and right there in the middle, again, that orange dot that you see in the middle of that circle is Hendy Woods State Park. And the redwoods continue to stretch down past Napa, past San Francisco, and past Monterey into an area called Big Sur. Now, what we see on this map actually does paint a story of, well, our history with these trees. For one, you notice that the range of the redwoods, the historic range of the redwoods, is marked in green on this map, stretching all along that green region belt that we call the Redwood Belt, and only going about a maximum of, 50 miles inland from the coast. It's not a big belt there at the redwoods, but what we see, that historic range of redwoods, and we also see other colors marked in blue, other colors marked in orange. Now, the difference between the green and the orange is what I'd like to point out. That the orange dots on this map are actually the only remaining old growth forests that are left. Because in our short history here of colonizing California, we have actually cut down over 95% of a 2.1 million acre belt, the coast. Now, these regions in California provide these trees with the perfect conditions for these trees to grow. You know, the trees that need water, they need carbon dioxide, plenty of sunlight, the perfect temperatures. And, well, being all along the coast allows these trees to exist in a very mild, temperate climate, which is important when we think about the future for these the species. Well, as our climate is changing, the temperatures are increasing, and we're getting longer periods of drought. They're all things that will stress many different habitats. And we'll find out a little bit today that these trees do much more for maintaining the composition of our climate than we had ever imagined. Well, here at Hendy Woods, let's take a look around. Now, this is a forest. We have 845 acres of beautiful ecosystems that exist. Oh, just a beautiful place. And we are in Big Hendy Grove right now. In areas, 100-acre parcel of land within our park that is all dedicated to the preservation and, these amazing trees. The tallest living organism, again, reaching heights of over 350 feet tall. And we stand in amazement under these species of trees, but they are keepers of their own ecosystem. They provide so much in the form of shade and shelter for the inhabitants of this forest. And when it comes to these challenges of climate change, well, they do many different natural services to help keep the composition of our atmosphere at bay. So we're going to learn all about this today, and I hope you're all excited to be here. Now let's just take a look at where we came from and, how we got ourselves into this situation. So we know very much that climate change is linked to rampant carbon dioxide, carbon emissions, and all this is due to human activities. And, we are going to find out that we have to make quite a change. But where did we come from? How did we get into this position? So here we go. We have an illustration of our untapped coastline of California. And, all these different parts are coast redwood trees towering above everything else in nature, stretching all the way out to the prairies and up to the oak woodlands and running the beautiful streams that run out to our rivers and feed into our oceans. all these different parts of all these different ecosystems, all the different parts of the puzzle. Well, they can act almost as different organs to a bigger living body that we call our planet Earth. Now, as the westward movement here in California specifically, gold was discovered in our areas. And this brought hundreds of thousands of people out to the coast seeking that gold and that fortune. And so as hundreds of thousands of people came to the area, well, they needed space in order to settle on. And well, they cut through many of our oak woodlands. They harvested the coast redwoods, 95% of the coast redwoods, in order to build room to settle on. And they used that lumber to build our very first settlements, camps, and cities even. So we started to build on the land using that redwood lumber, early settlements. And well, life for the settler was improving as we try to try to make our lives easier. And people were having to work all day to tend to their camps, either mining for gold, farming, and agriculture and land. But in this short story, we are actually going to find out that we needed to develop technology in order to make our ways of life. So we built these factories. And factories were utilizing this stuff called fossil fuels, things like coal and gas and all these different fuels that can be used to generate a great deal of energy, either to get machines to move in the conveyor belts of these factories or even generate electricity later on. So when you burn a fossil fuel, it starts to emit this stuff called CO2, carbon dioxide. And carbon dioxide, we would soon find out, was a greenhouse gas. It's something that actually absorbs the heat of the sun. And, this started to allow us to, power our homes. We were able to, generate all this electricity. We can turn the lights on in our houses and all that. And we can keep our food cold. So this is great. But even after that, we started to develop new technology like the automobiles, our vehicles, our cars. And to this day, now we're at in a situation where almost, in every household in the U.S., on average, you have 2 to 3 vehicles. But just like those factories, these vehicles start to add more and more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And this creates a very interesting story. We have added 47% more carbon dioxide into our atmosphere than it existed prior to the Industrial Revolution. Now, this is starting this whole thing that we call the greenhouse effect. And that's where this heat from the sun is allowed to enter our atmosphere, as it should. We like the sun because it keeps us warm, but this carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases actually act as an insulator. They trap the heat of that sun, as that sun would typically, or that sun heat would typically fluff up and get into our, escape back into space. Well, this insulator, CO2 and other greenhouse gases, have trapped that heat from escaping. So what that started is this big situation where, we're seeing warmer temperatures, more extreme temperatures at that. We're seeing a change to our weather patterns. We're seeing the effects throughout a lot of different areas. All different regional areas are seeing different effects. And here in California, well, we're seeing long periods of prolonged drought, extreme temperatures, thinking of things like that in the last year, we had a record-breaking temperature at Duff Valley of 130 degrees. Now, this paints a very scary story as it will impact humans, it will impact all the animals, all the inhabitants of this earth are all at risk because of our actions, the impacts of the use of this land. And I'm not here to paint a story of doom and gloom for you all today. Well, luckily for us, there is something out there that actually utilizes carbon dioxide, that greenhouse gas, to build itself and, well, to grow. That thing is actually plants. Not just the big old redwood trees that we are so proud of here, but also things like the understory plants. This here, hedge nettle. This here, fairy bells, different ferns, and all such. All the plants that we find in the understory, western sword fern. But plants all do this process called photosynthesis, which draws carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, and they build themselves using that carbon dioxide through that power of photosynthesis. Now, the thing about redwoods, the redwood forest, it has been studied that the redwood forest actually takes 3 times as much carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and stores it for longer than any other terrestrial forest in the world. And this is good news for us. But let's just figure out, how does this happen? How do these trees do this? This magic almost, pulling that carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, building themselves using it, is key to this whole principle. It's something called carbon sequestration, or a simpler word might be carbon storage. Now, it all has to start somewhere, right? We know that plants, many sort, start their lives off as seeds, and well, while the redwoods have more than one reproductive strategy, it's amazing to think how the first redwood trees came along. And excuse me. So you might think, hey, like, the redwoods must have giant seeds to get going. And those giant seeds must come from giant cones, because these trees are conifers, meaning they are a cone-bearing tree. Now, the cone-bearing tree of the redwood, well, I got a cone right here. And let me tell you, you might expect that it's really big. Wait, no way. This little tiny thing is a redwood cone. And these trees being so tall, well, they sway back and forth in the wind, which shakes pollen off the top of the tree to float down and be caught by the seed-bearing cone. And then within that cone, up to 50 to 100 seeds can develop inside this little tiny cone. Let me see, where did I put my seeds? Oh, right here you go. Check this out. So this right here in the palm of my hand is a redwood seed, about the size of a pepper seed or a tomato seed even. Now, that little seed has enough stored energy and just the very beginnings of a full redwood tree, which includes the start of a root and 2 little leaves to go up top. And when this seed finds spot with the perfect conditions, the perfect amount of water, the perfect amount of sunlight and nutrients. It'll put one root in the ground to spread out and two leaves up top so that it can start to do the hard work of photosynthesizing. Now, let's tell you, leaves are pretty cool. You check these leaves out. These are the understory leaves of a redwood. They exist in flat sprays to maximize the ability to absorb sunlight. And get this, leaves are like some of the very first solar panels out there. All right? Plants had developed the ability to build these cells within their leaves to actually absorb the power of the sun, and through that green pigment that we know as chlorophyll. Well, why is it green? Well, you think about green, green is a color of the rainbow, but its position in the rainbow is actually very important. Think of it as red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. This green pigment can absorb much of the colors from the red to the orange, and on the other side, absorb much of that blue and that purple. And it uses that sunlight to actually generate a whole bunch of energy to cook its own food. Right? Now, this is pretty amazing. Because if you're going to cook food at home, right, you need ingredients to cook with, and you need a way to cook it. Well, that sunlight provides the means to cook it, like the oven. It's a solar-powered oven. And using two basic ingredients that are found in nature, it can build itself. So check this out. One of those ingredients is something that falls from the sky when the clouds get thick and heavy. Talking about rain, right? Water, H2O. Now the other part of this puzzle, the other ingredient, is something that's in the air. And let's all take a deep breath of that fresh air. Ooh, that's nice. Now, when we breathe, and let's do that again. We breathe in oxygen. And when we breathe out, well, we breathe out carbon dioxide, CO2. Wait, we've already talked about CO2. It's the cause to all this climate change, right? Well, carbon dioxide is very natural in our natural gas cycles. But just as we breathe in, breathe out, is it because of our breathing that we have this climate change problem? No. It's because of the burning of fossil fuels and the carbon emissions from our actions in the past that have caused this whole problem. Now, as the plant takes in that sunlight and takes water and carbon dioxide, cooking those two things together, making a sugar called glucose. Well, that sugar is sent to the rest of the tree as the basic building block for all parts of the tree. And as that little tiny sprout starts to grow, it starts to grow taller and taller. And not only that, but bigger and bigger. Now, every year, the tree itself will stack on another ring of growth. As we see down here, you might guess, well, there's a log that the tree fell on the trail. We had to cut the trail through it, but just allowed to give us a very great example of what the wood of a tree looks like. And we see the different layers. We have on the outside the bark layer. We have inside of that the sapwood, and on the inside of that the hardwood. Now, when we think about trees' growth, as they grow taller and taller, every year they need new what we call vascular tissues, which are kind of like the veins of our body that help us pump blood. The vascular tissues of a tree actually where water is transported from the roots up to the leaves and where the sugars are sent from the leaves to the rest of the tree. And every year those vascular tissues need to be replaced and built upon another ring of growth every year. But the cool thing about this is that, say, if you take the basic building block, that sugar, it came from, well, water, which is a liquid, and carbon dioxide, which is a gas. And the plant is able to rearrange those things many, many times until it can build this wood out of those basic building blocks. And so every year that it's getting bigger and bigger and getting taller and taller, it is actually storing more and more carbon dioxide every minute of the day. It's doing quite a lot, in fact. We found that the redwoods, well, not only are they so massive and do pull a lot of carbon dioxide, but once it's here, it is locked away within the body of the tree for sometimes thousands of years after the tree has fallen. So this makes for a really, this is a great opportunity. It draws us inspiration on how we can start to rebuild our climate. It's after this tree is down on the ground, it'll start to decompose, and slowly those carbons will actually, well, a good portion of them will release back into the air, but a lot of it will also be stored underground, creating new soil and creating new habitat. You might see moss starting to grow on the tree. You might even see ferns growing on top of the tree. But this forest is really, really productive. Productive as in it does so much photosynthesis. All this green around here, all this accounts for carbon sequestration and photosynthesis. But, well, so what is the problem? I mean, if the forests are all doing all this hard work, why do we still have this climate change problem? Well, the trick here is that even though a single redwood tree can pull 250 tons of carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere in its lifetime, even though it can do all that, it cannot match the rate at which we are emitting more carbon dioxide. So we have to start to think about how we can do better. But another thing is we know that all the climate's changing. So can these trees adapt quick enough to overcome the challenges of climate change? Well, here's the thing. When we're talking about all that photosynthesis, all the things that allow these trees to help us out in our fight against climate change, well, there is one limiting factor to the amount that a tree can actually pull carbon dioxide. And that is, well, there's two ingredients involved, right? We have carbon dioxide and the other water. So the challenge here is, well, you need water in order to pull carbon dioxide. And as we know in California, well, we've been seeing long periods of drought. And, well, increase of temperature, more extreme temperatures. We find that, and everybody has hypothesized that the coast redwoods, their range is likely to shrink because of the suitable habitat that the redwoods are able to be in. Now, here's the defense, though. The coast redwoods, They have an adaptation that is truly amazing. And one of the reasons why they are able to be so tall is because when they exist along the coast of California, the top of the tree actually reaches up into the clouds. And well, the top of the tree, the leaves look a lot different. Take a look at the leaves right here. These are leaves that were blown off of the top of the tree on a windy day. I was not brave enough to go and climb it. But as you see, it's kind of like little scales and ropes, rope-like, scaly, almost like a snake's body. One of these needles at the top of the tree can be smaller because there's plenty of sun up top. One of the benefits of these leaves being up there is they actually comb the clouds for little particles of water. As the tree reaches into the clouds, these clouds pass by, and little water molecules by, and enough water collects onto these little leaves here that it drips, creating its own rain. To a certain extent, they even found out that these trees can breathe in a good amount of that water. One single redwood tree needs about it can take up about 500 gallons of water in a single day. And they calculate that about 30 to 40% of it is available because of the fog, because of the clouds. So this is amazing. It's like they can get rain even on a day when it's not raining. But we have seen a reduction of the amount of rain of about 60% in the last couple of years. So this creates a big issue. And as we talk about the redwoods and how they're doing in response to climate change, they are surprising us. It's almost like the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is actually, and the warmer temperatures are causing them to grow quicker. But I believe that the jury is still out on as we know, science is ever-changing. We are constantly studying to come up with answers for test our hypothesis. But when these trees are going through a big growth spurt, I could say, for how long will they be able to survive without as much water as they need? So as we take a look around, this kind of creates a tinderbox sort of drier trees, less water. This creates a tinderbox of a problem, especially when our relationship with fire has, been missing for quite a long time. We have, since settlement of California, we have started to suppress fires in our area because, we live nearby the forest, and we have developed permanent settlements. Well, when it comes to wildfires in the redwood forest, fires are a natural process. And we see all along the ground here lots of what we would call forest fuels in firefighting, right? You see branches that were dropped off of these redwoods, stacking up, thick layers of redwood leaves and duff on the ground. See log-sized fuels on the ground. Well, our relationship with fire is something that we need to address. We have to develop new fire strategies. And as California State Parks, we are constantly learning that the ways to, promote the health of the forest is to actually prescribe fires in areas. Fire is a natural process. Now, you take a look at all these sticks and leaves on the ground, and if we were to, say, have a low intensity fire through this area, those sticks and leaves burn through, eliminating the understory fuels. but also releasing nutrients into the soil that act as vitamins for the trees. So this is kind of neat. Wow. As far as the redwoods, though, well, you take a look around here, and being that these trees have been around for sometimes in 500 years, 700 years, thousands of years, many of these trees have been around in this forest for 1,500 years, like the one that's behind me. And to think that this tree has not been in a wildfire is a silly thought. Now, for one, redwoods have this really fire resistant bark. You can see there's some burn marks back here. And that bark can be, in some cases, over a foot thick, stacked tightly together, like long stringy fibers that are only paper thin, but as you stack many of them together, well, this became this is a fire resistant. Now, even that, the tree does not have a very volatile sap. It doesn't have a whole lot of burnable sap, so it has fire resistance is built in. Now, so when the trees fire, or their bark can protect the tree from burning in that fire, well, it also sometimes might defeat that bark, which actually, in many cases, will actually create habitat. Let me move this out of the way for a second. Now, check this out. This is a structure that we call a goose pen, and it's created over generations and generations of fires. The tree that we've been talking in front of the entire time is actually hollow. And let's see, you can get in here. There's a cave in here, would be prime habitat for a nesting animal. So this is a very busy part of the trail, and I don't think they would be, happy to be around so many people. But if I were to play hide and seek, this would be a perfect place to do it, right? I can get in here and almost disappear. Now, this is habitat for animals like bats. Sometimes you might find fox burrows following the root systems under the tree. So wildfires create habitat. They help clear away the forest soil and help promote the health of the forest. But one thing that's really neat is that, let me pull up a picture or two here. Now, in the case of a wildfire that might come through, we've been seeing the forest bounce back in a great way. Now, this is pictures from Armstrong Redwoods. Only an hour and a half drive from where I'm at here at Hendy. But as the fire came through this forest, it was approaching from one side, and they did what we call a backburn. The firefighters knew the fire was approaching this forest, and so they actually lit down the fire on the ground there, allowing the fire to burn towards the hill, while actually keeping their eyes on it. Now, they were successfully able to keep a low intensity fire, which actually burnt through, or eliminating most of that forest fuel on the ground. And we see that the redwood bark actually did its job to protect the fire, or to protect the tree from fire. Now, when you clear away a lot of that space, though, this actually punches a hole into that leaf litter. And this creates a new spot where if a seed were to fall on the ground right there, seed would start to germinate, creating a brand new generation of redwoods that might have a chance to have adapted to a changing climate, right? So the forest is not only generating by clearing space. What we notice is the bark of this forest is really good. And as you look towards the sky, the top half of this photo, man, still thriving, still green. And this photo was taken only a month after the wildfires had hit through Armstrong, Redwoods, and Austin Creek. Now, in many other cases, one of the most devastating fires that California state parks has seen in a long time is the fires of Big Basin. We thought that the fire did climb to the canopy in this case, and this is a very scary time. We lost many of our historic buildings, and many of our employees had lost their homes. And our hearts go out to anybody who's been impacted in any wildfires over the past years. But what we see from the forest, we already see, this is a picture that was only a month after the fire was contained. You have fire still on the ground. But what else we see in this picture brings us lots of hope. Now, take a look over here. in the base of the redwoods, we might see that there are sprouts popping up behind the fire. Fire actually stimulates new growth to occur. These trees actually create clones behind themselves in response to fire. And this little tiny sprout has the potential to grow into a full-size redwood and helps to heal the tree on which it's growing. So we're seeing a lot of different benefits of wildfires in California. Many different ecosystems have different reasons why they might rely on fires. So it's time to start to think of fire as something that we can use as a prescription for a forest to promote the health of that forest. Now, with all that we've learned today, we've learned all about how these trees help benefit our climate by pulling up carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, by storing it within the body of the tree for sometimes thousands of years. And we've learned that these trees are so resilient when it comes to overcoming drought, and that fire is very much part of their ecology. Well, we want to learn today, or we want to talk a little bit about what we can do to kind of do our part to help our climate out. How do we start to fix these problems? And I've heard so many different great ideas from schools all over, all the students around. Well, I've heard students saying, well, we as our school, we have built a community garden of edible foods so that instead of transporting our foods, having our foods transported in and buying it at the grocery store, we're growing our own vegetables for our students. So that is like a community-based solution. Now, we can also, I've seen schools doing what we call a walk and roll, where every a single day out of every week, to reduce the amount of carbon emissions from vehicles, everybody in the school is encouraged to either walk to school or roll to school, riding your bike, or skateboarding, or rollerblading, or whatever you would like to do. This reduces the need for our vehicles, and starts to build a brighter future for us. Now, other than that, we can also do things like reducing our use of electricity, turning the lights off during the day, and making sure that we're not leaving our air conditioner on or our heaters on when it's not necessary. All these different things that we can do inside our own homes are great. And on the bigger spectrum, we can start to adapt our power grids, starting to use more solar panels, more wind turbines, more hydroelectric dams. Now, the good news about all this is that we've been talking so much about what we can do, and I've shared this program with thousands of students to actually create a common ground, and we are building a whole army of climate champions out there. If we do our part and we start to eliminate our dependency on fossil fuels, we can start to paint a brighter future, allowing these redwoods and all the ecosystems around the world to start to repair the damage that we have done. Now, everybody, I want to thank you. I know that is quite a lot of information, but I want to thank you for your time today, and hope you have a beautiful rest of the day. From Hendy Woods State Park, I'm Stephen Yahelka, and I hope that you all have a good one. We're get out there. It is Climate Week right now, and if you want to learn more about different ecosystems, this week we have two learning programs tomorrow. One at Anza Borrego talking about the impacts or evidence of impacts of climate change in the desert. And we are also having a home learning program from the salt marshes down south. So it's great programs coming up. Stay tuned. And if you want to learn more, thanks for taking your time.